just glad to see this many people here today, and I'm sure the Chancellor is as well. Today, the way this is going to work is I'm going to first introduce our favorite Chancellor here, and she's going to give some brief opening remarks. She's the favorite Chancellor ever. But she's going to give some opening remarks, and then we're going to start with this panel assembled up here. They're all going to ask a couple of questions of the Chancellor, kind of get the day started. And then after that, we're going to kick it out to all of you. The Chancellor would like to have a direct Q&A with those of you in the audience. Amanda Norris over there will walk around with a microphone, and Greg Tice will be helping her out. So if you guys want to step out so everyone can see what you look like. If you have a question for the Chancellor, make sure you get their attention, and they'll bring them in. Okay? And then after that point, it'll go back and forth, questions from all of you, as well as some questions from the panel interspersed in there as well. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce this woman sitting on stage with me right now. Her reputation precedes her, and so I don't think I can do her justice with any sort of an introduction. But you all know her as a former Justice of the United States Supreme Court, a former legislator from the state of Arizona, and far enough back, a former ranch girl herself. And now today she is our favorite Chancellor, our only Chancellor, Sandra Day O'Connor.
I really am glad to have the privilege this afternoon of visiting with some students at William and Mary. I've been coming down a few times since last spring when I became Chancellor, and I saw a few students in the graduation ceremony, but there hasn't been much of an opportunity to meet with students, and so I have looked forward to this afternoon and to get an idea of what you really look like. Now, how many of you are in your first year? Would you raise a hand and show me? How many are in your senior year? Okay, a few. Gosh, it must be getting tough in the senior year. And I guess everybody else is a sophomore or junior. And it's just really nice to have a chance to meet with you today. I cannot believe that Ryan has now become the student body president for a second term. That's unheard of. Did you do that? Did you really elect him for a second go-round? I thought he did a terrific job when I was here before, but I didn't realize that it was possible to get a second term. He is going to be a formidable political figure someday, so keep an eye on it. There's just no telling. And didn't you go to Washington last summer too, for a while? See, I mean, it's happening already right in front of your very eyes. So you may be responsible for this budding political career. Now, I think it's going to be better if we talk about what you want to talk about. I've worked a lot in government in my life. When I graduated from Stanford Law School, I had hoped I'd get a job as a lawyer. Now that was a long time ago, before any of you were born, but nobody would even talk to me about being a lawyer in a law firm. I couldn't get an interview because they didn't hire women lawyers in those days. And I was kind of surprised. I just hadn't anticipated that I'd have difficulty even getting an interview. I guess I was somewhat naive. I just hadn't thought about it. And I finally had an undergraduate friend. I went to Stanford undergraduate and then stayed on for Stanford Law School. And I asked a young woman friend of mine, as an undergraduate student there, to talk to her father, who was a partner in one of California's big law firms. And I said, now ask your father and see if he can't arrange for me to have an interview for a job in the law firm. She talked to her dad, and he did arrange an interview for me. I made the trip from Stanford down to Los Angeles and had a visit with the partner in the firm who did the interviews, and we had a chat for a few minutes, and then finally said, well, Miss Day, how do you type? And I said, well, so-so, I get by, but I'm not a great typist. And he said, if you can type well enough, I might be able to get you a job at this firm as a legal secretary. But Miss Day, we've never hired a woman as a lawyer here. And frankly, I don't see the day when we will. So that was the end of that, because I really didn't want to be a legal secretary. I didn't much like typing, to tell you the truth. So I had to go about finding a job because I'd gotten engaged to a fellow law student named John O'Connor, and he was a year behind me. So he still had to stay in law school. And we both kind of like to eat, so if we were going to get married, one of us had to get a job, and that was me. So, I heard that the district attorney in San Mateo County, California, had once had a woman lawyer on his staff. And I thought, well, if he had one, he could run it, so I went to see him. And he was a very nice man. It was an elected office, the district attorney's post there at that time. Very pleasant man, an Italian-American. And we had a good visit. He looked at my record and he said, oh, well, you've got a great record here. I'd be so happy to have you in my office. But he said, I don't have any money to hire anybody else. And the supervisors have to give me money to hire anybody. And he said, also, this is a very small office, and I don't have an empty office space where I could put you. He walked me around the office, and it was true. There wasn't a vacant office. But I went back to the Lazy Bee Ranch, where I had grown up, to plan for the wedding with John. And I wrote a long letter to the district attorney, and I gave him all the reasons why I thought I could be a real help in his office. It was a very long letter. And I said, now, I know you don't have any money right now to pay me, but I'd be willing to go to work there for a while, and you could go to the supervisors, and maybe they'd then give you some money to pay me a salary. But in the meantime, I could work for money. And I said, I know you don't have any space, but I met your secretary. She's very nice, and she has a big office. I'd be pleased to have my desk in her office if you have. Well, you may. How about that? No pay, no loss. But I got a foot in the door, right? And I just had a great time in that office because all of a sudden I was doing all kinds of legal work for officers and boards and commissions, giving them legal advice. I was having a lot more fun than my classmates in law school who had gotten jobs in the big firms, and they were taking depositions and doing research and not having any real responsibility. So I was pretty happy. I hadn't been there too long when the county attorney was made the judge for the county. And that created a vacancy in his office. And my supervisor became the county attorney, and I then got a bona fide job with pay and an office, and everything was great. I loved it. So you just never know where life is going to take you. And the main thing is, don't get discouraged, because you can usually work something out. And then if you can do a good job, make something out of it. And that experience started me in the field of public service. And I spent the bulk of my work years in public service as a result. Not all of it. I was in private practice for a while in Arizona. But most of it was in public service, and I really liked it. So you too may find at some point in your lives that you'd like to be involved in some public service, and I highly recommend it. It's great.